The car was nicknamed Tin Lizzie. Henry Ford would build 15 million between 1908 and 1927. The original price of $850 would be lowered to $260 in 1927, a price assuring every family could own one. America was officially taking to the highways. There was one problem. There weren't any. An oil man from Tulsa set out to fix that. Cyrus Avery. Avery understood one principle about transportation that others did not. Roads were not meant to get you somewhere, but to build somewhere. The government begrudgingly agreed, and Avery broke ground on what would become known as Route 66. A name, he said, just sounded good. In 1926, the majority of the Mother Road was at best dirt paths, meandering its way from Chicago, Illinois, to its final destination at an amusement park situated on a wood pier in Santa Monica, California. 1,343 miles outside of Santa Monica, on a stretch of red dirt, you pass Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This is where our story begins. On a 2-acre lot sits a large red brick school building. It faces south towards an expansive Oklahoma prairie. Open windows are its functioning air conditioning. Today is Sunday, so math isn't being taught. The Union Sunday School is in session.
Well, basically, they had the Union Sunday School so that they would have a place to worship. And it didn't matter, Baptist, Methodist, whatever, because that was all they had at the time.
They just had lay teachers that would teach from the Bible each week. There was no churches in the area other than the Nazarene Church in Bethany, which was still several miles on west.
It was the beginning of a group of believers meeting together on Sundays to study the Bible and worship, but it was interdenominational.
Then after quite a few years with that, then I guess it had grown enough. The story I get is that there was enough Baptists within the group then that they decided they could form their own church.
There was 33 Baptists within that Union Sunday School that felt that the way the community was growing and the number of people that were moving this direction, I think they felt there was a need to establish a Baptist church in the area.
Putnam City was born out of those 33 families. That's when they began to grow.
Traveling from Shawnee, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City in 1926 involved 2 separate train rides. The first leg was riding the Tecumseh Railway. A steam locomotive named Old Beck was your faithful companion and only choice. The second was the interurban streetcar line in Oklahoma City. Being fleet of foot could help you avoid a 45-minute delay with a missed connection. Dewey Riley was young and fleet of foot. A student at Oklahoma Baptist University, Dewey answered the call from the school administration to preach at Putnam City Baptist Church's first Sunday service. I'm sure he was intrigued by the structure his pulpit was situated under that first Sunday.
Some families got together and they decided they needed to worship together, and they didn't have any place to worship in. So they built a brush arbor.
It's just basically a sunshade made with limbs, and where they would cut down trees and make a pole frame and then just put branches over it to create a sunshade.
The Oklahoma heat's pretty intense, and I suspect it was just the easiest structure for them to build to provide some shade from the sun, because they're worshiping in the middle of the day on Sunday, which is pretty warm. There was a severe windstorm in Oklahoma that blew all the foliage off of the brush arbor, so they needed to provide another structure. They eventually bought $400 worth of lumber on credit at a local lumber yard and built a building where they worshiped.
It's basically just a pole barn, had no floor. They had a stove in the middle for heat during the winter that they had to shovel coal into during the church services to keep the building warm.
And the mothers were very upset, dressing up their little girls in all their Sunday best, and then having them get so dirty from the dirt floor. So they wanted to eventually put a floor in, and they did.
It's August of 1930, and Route 66 has been upgraded from red dirt to gravel, far from the comfortable ride Portland cement will provide in 1938. Today, families have loaded all that they own into their cars and are heading west. Some of the family stay behind in hopes that the farm will not be lost forever. Oklahoma will lose 1 in 6 people from its population over the next 4 years. The Great Depression will bring the nation to its knees. The Dust Bowl will plunge Oklahoma even further.
Well, the church was already sort of economically depressed because these were not rich people. They were living on basics in their life. And when the stock market crash happened, a number of people lost their livelihoods, and trickled down to a lot of people lost their jobs.
People worked at whatever jobs they could find, very, very cautious about any money that was spent. And a lot of times there wasn't money changing hands as much as produce or goods that you'd made or grown.
Those were tough times, and they were close to losing the church. But they struggled, and everybody came together and gave what they could. And if they didn't have anything to give, they would sell stuff, and chickens and eggs, and raising crops in their gardens and selling the vegetables.
Back during those days, the church was very important to people. Not only did they want to grow physically and mentally, but they wanted to grow spiritually as well. And the people back then had a real compassion for growing churches.
Putnam City Baptist started churches just to provide more opportunities for people to be involved in a local church, study God's Word, minister to the people around them. They wanted it to be a situation that allowed people to attend close to where they lived, because without transportation, they're not going to be able to go very far to attend a church. There was a family that joined the church in 1927. The Sharp family, they had 6 children. He was a grocer, had a grocery business. And so when the Depression started, he decided that to provide for his family, he would drive a school bus for the Putnam City School District. And on Sunday morning, he drove the bus around his route and picked up people and brought them to Putnam City Baptist Church, which was fulfilling a need because people didn't have money for gasoline or transportation of any kind. So he provided that service.
The Dust Bowl and the lack of jobs and the depression and all those things, that created hardships. And hardships created a need for bigger family, and bigger family was at the church. And consequently, that's where I think they tied together, and they worked together to get other families through just like themselves.
Mothers hug their sons tighter after the end of a war. For the mothers whose sons don't return, they busy themselves in their gardens. It's 1946 and Oklahoma has recovered from what few thought possible. Farmers are farming, games of stickball resume in vacant lots, and front porches are sat in. People once again have hope. For the church on Grove and 41st, it never was about the circumstances. The lack of resources, relentless dust storms, tornadoes, a dirt floor to meet in. It was far more than that. It was for their neighbor. It was for the gospel.